What's up, everybody? My name is Eason, and welcome back to another video. And today, we're going to get started 3.4 for AP Comparative Government and Politics, which is political beliefs and values. And we're not going to really jump into political parties and what they do in our course countries just yet. That's going to come up soon. But we're going to look at authoritarian and democratic regimes as a whole, compare and contrast them, and just the major belief systems between the citizens and the governments in these regimes. So, we're going to be building off political culture, including core beliefs and values that address the tension between order and liberty as they shape the relationship between a state and its citizens. Contrasting political ideologies, which we're about to do, affect how the state treats its citizens and deals with specific problems such as political corruption. And we're going to talk about an example of corruption in Mexico in just a second. One major contrast we have done in the past videos in this course is between rule by law and rule of law. Rule by law is in authoritarian regimes and rule of law in democratic regimes. And just a refresher, rule by law reinforces the authority of the state in which a government authority is seen as above the law and can use the law to benefit themselves and execute and enforce it as best seen fit and convenient for themselves and the government, usually over their citizens and people in the country. And this is aka the president is supreme and is like a god but isn't. And rule of law, which is where all the people, no matter if you're poor, in the government, a woman, or just tourists, are not all above the law, and they are all protected by the law equally. In Iran, we have seen progress in this regime to have a more rule of law focused government where 290 non-Muslims can be in the legislative branch, but we still see some rule by law with the government killing homosexuals and treating them and women differently in the country. For example, women are often banned from spectating men's sports or participating in sports at all. In our emerging democracies such as Nigeria and Mexico, we often see a blend of rule by law and rule of law characteristics, so they're both present at the same time. For example, Mexico, we see Pemex, which is a state-owned oil company, which has had corruptions and used for the wealth and equity of certain people, which have to be important and official because remember, Pemex is state-owned. Now, this shows rule by law because of the corruption. However, steps have been taken to privatize corporations in Mexico, where they're not run by the state anymore, and this shows rule of law. The United Kingdom, of course, is focused around rule of law, not rule by law, as anyone of any kind or anything can do what they want as long as they follow the law, and nobody is above it, including the prime minister or monarch, because they have to worry about forced resignation or being removed, like we learned about a few videos ago. Beliefs about social and economic equality can be held by citizens in both democratic and authoritarian regimes, but can be contrasted by the amount of enforcement responsibility transferred to the government and the amount of choice offered to the citizens to protect their health and material well-being. And this ranges from limited government, social protections, to a welfare state. We see in Mexico and Nigeria, two democratic regimes, that choices that citizens can make about themselves and political processes is a lot higher, which we can see with evidence of elections, and this contrasts to China, an authoritarian regime where elections aren't prominent, and the citizens don't have much say in politics and often over their life, as seen with the one-child policy, which turned into the two-child policy, and so on. Now, earlier I mentioned this term welfare state, and I'm sure you don't know what that actually means. A welfare state is when a government takes the responsibility to protect the health and well-being of its citizens, especially those who cannot afford it or are in poverty. Now, in the United Kingdom, we see the public healthcare system, of course, and that's offered across the whole state. But welfare states can also provide education, public housing, retirement plans, etc. In China, the Tibetan people, which are a minority group, can get housing assistance in urban areas if they follow the regional migration steps and paperwork correctly. China actually provides more public housing than the United Kingdom does, and it's an authoritarian regime. Remember, China also has the largest population in the world currently. All 6 of our course countries actually provide some form of education through the state. Now, if it's enforced or emphasized in the country, it will vary. For example, in Nigeria, in the north, where Islamic law is prominent, education for women isn't really emphasized. But in the south, the Christianity and other religions, and less prominence of Islam, we see emphasis on education, especially from women. Now, the final concept of this video, which is a little hard to grasp, is post-materialism, which refers to the social valuing of self-expression and quality of life that leads to applying pressure on governments to address environmental issues and social and economic equality. Let's look at protests in Russia, which I've talked about a ton because they've died and blah, 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 blah. So let's talk about Russia now, for real. So we see election in 2011 or so, and there's protests from 2011 to 2013, and they have journalists making stories on them, and people marching, making signs, and the Russian government likes to cease their protests and stop them and kill journalists and arrest protesters, and this often scares people into protesting in the future as well, and we see low post-materialism here. In China, similar actions by the state also occur with the seizing of protests and killing and arresting, but they often respond saying they will handle a situation like how they said they handle COVID-19 and environmental pressure set up by protesters, because pollution is a big problem in China due to its industrialization. This establishes internal legitimacy in China, by the way, just so you know why they do it. So basically, what you should get from this is post-materialism deals with the desire for greater well-being and quality of life by putting pressures on the government and using self-expression, and this is valued more in democratic regimes than in authoritarian regimes. And that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe. It's free. It will just help me out. You can change mine later on in the description down below. I do have some AP Comparative Government practice with MCQs, FRQs, little worksheets and tables you can make, and all that fun stuff. So go check it out. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.